Hello friends, you have read a lot about reading in your module BES 124, especially the second block. Today we will discuss another and a very interesting reading technique called the SQ3R, that is survey, questioning and the 3 R's which stand for read, recite and review. Reading is an active cognitive process of interacting with the written text in order to comprehend it. Note that it is an active cognitive process. This means that reading is not mere deciphering or decoding the printed word. There has to be cognition. Unless comprehension has taken place, we cannot say that reading has happened. Reading is the spontaneous recognition of different written symbols simultaneously associating with meaning and also with the existing experience of the reader. Comprehension happens when prior knowledge combines with deciphering the printed information. Comprehension is the main goal of reading. Many times the teacher needs to help her students to read with comprehension. Learners need to discover the meaning or the purpose for which the text has been written. In order to construct the meaning, the readers need to know the main idea of the text. So, reading comprehension involves more than the reader's response. It involves many interactions between the readers and what they bring to the text. In teaching reading skills, the teachers have to be able to help the students to read and comprehend the text. This is achieved when the teacher leads the students to know the purpose of the text and how the sentences are interconnected to each other. Many a times it has been seen that reading in the classroom boils down to students reading a text one by one and answering the questions based on it, with the teacher's role being correcting the reading and then the answers. At some point in life, we all have been through it and know how utterly boring and unproductive this activity is, apart from being a waste of time. Why waste of time? Because neither the teacher nor the student gain anything. So what is required is active involvement in reading so as to better comprehend the text. Successful reading is crucial to academic success. We all know that. There are 4 aspects to effective reading comprehension. First, identifying the main idea. Every text has 1 or 2 main ideas, which is the information the writer wants to convey to the reader. Second is understanding the details. To get the details, the student may first need to skim the text to get a hint about the content and also to get to know how deep to study the text. Third, vocabulary. In order to understand, the reader must know the meaning of what is being read. Imagine how frustrating it would be to read and be unable to understand most of the words. Knowing the meaning of words is important for successful reading. And fourth is inferring. The process of arriving at logical conclusions on the basis of known or assumed premises is inference. Being able to reach certain valid conclusions on what we read indicates a mature reader. So, to be able to read successfully, we first need to identify the main idea, understand the details, be comfortable with the vocabulary, and finally we should be able to infer. In order to make the process of teaching reading interesting and also in order to achieve the objectives of teaching reading, we need special strategies which increase the involvement of the students in the process of reading, which in turn results in better comprehension and also development of good readers. There are various strategies which you have already read about, and one of the strategies is SQ3R, that is survey, question, read, recite and review. The goal of this method is to increase students' engagement with the text when studying it. This strategy helps students to acquire a lot of knowledge while trying to answer questions related to the text being read. Students construct information in their mind and also make it meaningful. While trying to comprehend the text using the SQ3R method, students not only learn how to comprehend actively but also become critical readers because they process the information at a deeper level. This method sharpens the reading skill, makes reading purposeful and meaningful, and effectively utilizes the time. SQ3R is a comprehension strategies introduced by Francis P. Robinson. He was an American educational philosopher in his book Effective Study, which was published way back in 1946. This strategy helps students to think about the text they are reading while they are reading. Often categorized as a study strategy, SQ3R helps students comprehend the first time they read a text by teaching them how to read and simultaneously think like an effective reader. This technique helps you to learn more effectively and also increases your retention of the written text. This strategy not only helps you to focus on what you need from a document but also creates a structure for the information in your mind. As we have earlier discussed, SQ3R is a reading comprehension strategy known for its 5 steps: survey, question, read, recite and review. The method offers a more efficient and active approach to reading text material. It was created for college students, but it is extremely useful for younger students as well. Classrooms all over the world have begun using this method to better understand what they are reading. Now, what actually is the SQ3R method in action? The first step is survey. Here you skim through the text. You have read in Block 2 Unit 7 about skimming and scanning a text. You will recall that these are two reading strategies to quickly assimilate information from different sources. While surveying a text, we skim through it because, as you are aware, that skimming allows a person to quickly read through a passage to get the basic idea. When we have to read an unfamiliar text using the SQ3R strategy, we need to resist the temptation to read the text completely right in the beginning. Rather, first go through a chapter and note the title of the chapter, other headings, subheading and other prominent features such as figures or tables or illustrations and graphs and so on. Skim through the first sentences of paragraphs, read the chapter summary. This survey step typically takes only about 3 to 5 minutes, but it provides the reader an outline or a framework for what will be presented. At this stage, the reader needs to identify ideas and formulate questions about the text. Then we move on to the next stage, that is question. Try and generate questions about the content you are reading. You can do this by converting headings and subheadings into questions directly and then look for answers as you read the content of the text in the next stage. Other more general questions may also be formulated, like what is the author trying to say? What is this chapter about? And even something like what made you pick up that text to read? What do you want to achieve after reading it? What are you interested in to learn and how will this text help you? And then we come to the 3 R's, that is read, recite and review. The first R, read. In order to begin reading actively, use the background work done in S and Q. This means that now you need to read in order to answer the questions raised under Q. This is also known as active reading, something you have read about already in your course material. Passive reading, in contrast, results in merely decoding the printed word without engaging with the content. You need to read the document one section at a time. Keep making notes, which may be points which answer your questions, or it can also be something that you don't understand and you need to look up further. This reading or a read through may take more time than expected, especially if the information is complex. In the previous step, you had most probably turned every subheading into a question. Now at this stage, focus on finding answers to them. The next stage is recite. After having read the text completely, you should try to retell the content in your own words in the same manner as telling someone about the information. It is like teaching someone what you have learned. It is important that you use your own words so that you may be able to formulate and conceptualize the material. For this, you may try recalling and identifying the major points like the headings and the subheadings and your answers to the questions which had been formed in the Q stage. And then work out how other information fits around these questions and these answers. Go back to questions from step number 2 and try to answer them from memory. At this stage, you can refer to the text only if you get stuck. This recital or retelling step may be done either in an oral or a written format that suits your convenience. But we need to emphasize that this step is very important because it greatly helps in boosting the long-term memory for the text. And the final stage is review. Once you are done with reading the passage and reciting it to someone else, review the material by reading it to yourself, what the passage is about, using your own words. You may reread the documents or you may reread your notes. This will help in case you don't feel very confident that you have grasped all the information. And then discuss the material with someone else. So now let us demonstrate a small episode using the SQ3R strategy. Remember that as a teacher, you have to model these strategies to the students so that they are able to use it on their own. Now to give a demonstration, I will be using this book. I wish to study using the SQ3R technique. This book is called Toto-chan and the subtitle of the book is A Little Girl at the Window. It has been written by Tetsuko Kurayonagi and it has been translated by Dorothy Britton. Dorothy Britton herself is an author, poet and composer and was born in Japan and brought up in the United States and England. So very interesting. This book has an interesting cover. Apart from being very pleasant, it also extends like a jacket of the book on both sides. So this is an interesting turn to the book. Now let us turn the book at the back and see what the comments are. The first one says, a long-standing bestseller by Japan's most popular TV personality, also well known for her work as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. So we know that it is not just a frivolous bestseller by a TV personality, but because it is by somebody who has worked with UNICEF and is a Goodwill Ambassador, so it is going to be worthwhile content. We also know one thing that Tetsuko Kuroyanagi is a lady. The next comment is by New York Times, which describes Toto-chan as a quiet indictment of the sterile education. Very hard hitting, right? Then the International Herald Tribune, it talks about Toto-chan that it has reminded millions of Japanese what children think education should be. Okay, so this is a child's perspective. Finally, the Christian Science Monitor, it looks at Toto-chan and says, Toto-chan can be expected to attract American educators, parents and perhaps some children who can appreciate the international view beyond their own first floor windows. So it shows another hard hitting comment indicating that people don't look beyond their noses. Now let us open the book and see what is inside. On the first page, there is a flower and there is an image of a girl. On the dedication page, there is an image of a girl, or maybe it is a flower, or it is maybe somebody holding a flower. So maybe this suggests some sort of innocence. In any case, at the back they said what children perceive education should be. Throughout the book, there are certain pictures or sketches, all of girls, little children, and there are certain musical notes. So this, and let us look at the chapters now. Okay, so there are many chapters and the chapters are quite small, 2 pages, 1 page, half a page perhaps, because 2 chapters begin on the same page. And the chapters are also interestingly titled, like A Trip to a Hot Spring, The Railroad Station, The 47 Ronin, Swan Lake, Radio Comedians, and so on. And there is also a chapter which is The Little Girl at the Window. So we know that the subtitle is also a part of the textbook. Then we have chapters like The New School, I Like This School, The Headmaster, and so on. The chapters seem to have interesting titles also, like Pigtails, Library Car, Tales, and so on. The last chapter, very fittingly, is called Sayonara Sayonara, which means farewell in Japanese, or a goodbye. Now this book also has a postscript, an epilogue and notes. So it is a fairly thick book of 208 pages and notes are in Japanese. No, there is English also. So notes are majorly in Japanese with interspersed with English. This is the survey stage. Now let us move on to the Q stage of generating questions. First of all, why did I buy this book? While surveying the book, the next one is, while surveying the book, we came across words and phrases like sterile education, first floor windows, look beyond their first floor windows. Both are not only hard-hitting comments, but also suggest a closed and a cramped mindset. So how will this mindset pan out in the book? Another phrase which is used twice in significant places is the subtitle, The Little Girl at the Window. Does it indicate a caged situation and somebody looking out longingly? Then what do the sketches of little girls and boys indicate? Is the story about a little girl? Or is the little girl telling the story? Remember what the International Herald Tribune said, that Toto-chan has reminded millions of Japanese what children think education should be. So is the child a storyteller? Whose perspective is being put out in this book? And finally, I also wonder how a Japanese story would be relevant for Indian readers. For the reading stage, which is the next stage, I do not have time here to read the entire book, and I have also thought about talking about the first 3 chapters. So I have read the chapters. Now we will move on to the next stage, and that is recite. Let me tell you about the first 3 chapters. The story begins with a mother and daughter, the daughter is called Toto-chan, getting off at a railway station. The girl is happy and excited, but the mother is worried because this 7-year-old child has been expelled from her school. And now both of them are going to a new school for admission. The little child does not know that she has been expelled. So there is a little and a happy conversation between the girl and the ticket collector as they are getting out of the station. The next chapter, The Little Girl at the Window, is a flashback about the final meeting between the teacher and Toto-chan's mother. This chapter tells us why Toto-chan was expelled. The teacher said that the little girl used to quote-unquote disrupt her classes. How? By opening and shutting her desk all day long. The mother remembered with agony that the child loved the school just for this reason, that the desks did not have drawers but a lid which could be opened and shut. The mother also knew that once the novelty wore off, Toto-chan may stop this behavior. However, the teacher had other disruptive behaviors of the child. She would Toto-chan would talk to the nesting swallows or invite the musicians to the classroom window to play the music. All this, according to the teacher, justified her expulsion. So they are here at this station going for admission. The third chapter is a small one, where Toto-chan gets the first glimpse of her new school, and it leaves her completely awestruck because the classrooms were made of, lo and behold, abandoned railroad cars. This is where my recitation stops. This is the third stage. Now let us see how many questions have been answered so far. The teacher obviously belongs to the sterile educational system. We have yet to see how far this system has influence as the novel progresses. Why I picked up the book? I picked up the book because coming from teacher education, it was recommended as a commentary on the education system. So I picked up the book. The story is about the girl, and the protagonist is not the storyteller. And since this is a comment on the education system, it is of course relevant for India also. In fact, all the three countries, Japan, India as well as the USA. As a final step, let us move on to the third R, and that is review. In case of any doubt, we can reread the chapters or the notes that we have made. I have underlined in a few places in the book. This book has a universal appeal because it deals with a problem experienced by students across the world. You may have read Taro's Reward in Honeysuckle for class 6 NCERT. Taro's Reward and now Toto-chan. These two are very relatable stories. Both incidentally are Japanese stories. These two are very relatable because Taro's Reward was about a son's love for his aging parents, much like our own Shravan Kumar. And this book talks about a child's struggle in an inflexible and rigid educational system. So friends, this was a small demonstration of the SQ3R in practice. You can also use it for their textbooks. For instance, the economics NCERT textbook for class 9. It has an overview when it talks about, the third chapter talks about poverty. It has an overview, you can read that to summarize about that. And what you can do about questions the chapter and exercises can help you look for answers while you read the text. Ask each student to explain what he or she understood. So that is the reciting bit. And as a classroom, we can discuss the chapter 3, which is talking about poverty, and the concept of human poverty, which was introduced in the chapter. This is how you can also practice the SQ3R strategy in your own classroom with your own textbooks. To sum up, the SQ3R strategy allows students to write questions and think about what they want to learn. As students are reading the text, they have to write the answers to those questions using the details from the text. So today we have discussed a new and interesting strategy to improve reading comprehension of students. We talked about its various steps and its advantages and benefits. We also emphasized the role of the teacher in guiding her students to adopt this strategy. For this, I gave a small demonstration. We also talked about a chapter in a textbook of economics. And finally, we must keep in mind that every chapter of every subject is not amenable to this SQ3R reading strategy. It is the responsibility of the teacher to not only teach the students how to use this strategy, but also when to use it. So teacher's discretion is very important. To sum up, the SQ3R method offers a powerful strategy that can, if I may use the term, rewire your brain and make it more effective at processing information. It may be a time-consuming method in the beginning stages, but it can save countless number of hours or repeated studying of the chapter once the student gets accustomed to the process. Students will be able to write and review their information, and they can keep adding to it as they keep reading the chapter. This strategy is also beneficial for activating certain key areas of your memory and comprehension. By activating knowledge and not just memorizing fact, we can begin thinking about the textbook before starting reading. And once you start reading, the process will help you better review the information while you are reading. SQ3R helps you learn how to analyze, process, categorize or catalog important information. Additionally, the system will make it easier to create something like a study guide for the writer, for the reader himself, without continually referring to the textbook. And if you are serious about retaining more of what you read, you have to make reading relevant and related to your life. So when you review in the SQ3R method, it helps you to establish a link between the reading and your own experiences, which results in in-depth learning. I sincerely urge you to practice and use this strategy and also document your experiences and the improvements. Thank you.